Celeste Manno was born on the 22nd of November, 1996, in Catania, Italy. From the very first moment she arrived, her family felt like this tiny girl carried something extraordinary with her. Her godmother and aunt, Carmela Melinda, would later say that when Celeste opened those bright blue eyes, it was impossible not to stop and stare. She had that kind of effect on people. Even as a newborn, Celeste seemed to glow with her own little aura. Not long after, her family settled in the suburb of Mernda in northeast Melbourne, Victoria. She grew up with two brothers, Alejandro and Jaden. Jaden would go on to say that Celeste was the clever one, the brightest of all of them, and genuinely adored by everyone who crossed her path. Celeste became a cheerleader at Lalore Secondary College. She was athletic, outgoing, and carried an infectious smile that made people feel welcome instantly. But the thing that truly made her stand out was her kindness. She hated seeing anyone on the outside looking in and always noticed the person who needed a bit of warmth. Friends remembered her as a literal ray of sunshine. After school, Celeste followed her passion for helping others. She enrolled at RMIT University and completed a degree in criminology and psychology. Becoming a psychologist wasn't just a plan for her, it was a dream she was actively building toward. Her brother Alejandro said she felt perfect in every possible way. Her mother, Aggie, described her as a beacon of love and joy, someone who had a natural gift for making others feel valued. After graduation, Celeste joined the Cicro call center and quickly earned a promotion to team leader. Outside work, she stayed deeply connected to her family. She and Alejandro often spent nights in the kitchen making homemade pizzas and laughing about everything and nothing. By November 2020, Celeste's life was filled with exciting possibilities. She had just started dating Chris Rydale, and on the 15th of November, she posted a photo of them together on Instagram. It was the first time she had ever shared a picture with a boyfriend online. For Celeste, it was a simple, happy milestone. For someone else watching from afar, it became the final spark in a storm brewing quietly for years. To understand that moment, you have to go back to June 2018. At that time, Celeste was thriving at Cicro, recently promoted to team leader. That same month, an IT worker was temporarily assigned to her team. His name was Louis Rahim Sacco. Sacco was 35, living with his parents in Roxborough Park, and running a small IT business called Destix IT. Born in Iraq but raised in Australia, he had no criminal history and nothing unusual on paper. He and Celeste worked together for only a few weeks. Their conversations were minimal, strictly professional. Celeste had absolutely no romantic interest in him. But for Sacco, those brief weeks meant something very different. At the end of June, he was fired from Cicro. As her manager, Celeste had to escort him out of the building. It was routine procedure, but in true Celeste fashion, she tried to make an uncomfortable moment feel a little less harsh. As they walked to the car park, she offered him a handshake and wished him good luck, a small gesture of compassion. But when they reached his car, Sacco suddenly leaned in and kissed her on the cheek. It was uninvited, it was unexpected, and it was completely out of line. Celeste was startled, but she tried not to let it bother her. Alessandro later explained that his sister was never close with Sacco. She was simply doing what she always did, offering kindness where she could. Nothing more. 3 days after leaving Seattle, Sacco sent Celeste an Instagram message. He wrote, "I'm sorry, but I can't stop thinking about you. I have never felt like this about anybody in my entire life. It's bordering along OCD. I'm totally infatuated with you." That's what he told her. He claimed that ever since she escorted him out of the building, his productivity and even his personal life had started to fall apart. He wrote that this obsession with her had turned into something addictive and destructive, something that was messing with his ability to focus on anything else. Celeste stayed polite, even while reading messages that clearly crossed every line. She replied, "Hi, those are really sweet words, and I appreciate you saying all of that to me. As much as I appreciate this, I only feel in a professional way towards you, and I wish you all the best in your new job and journey." For most people, that would have been it. A kind rejection, a boundary set, end of story. But for Saiko, being told no wasn't just unacceptable, it was an insult. His tone flipped. He wrote back, "My impression of you has changed. You're no different to the majority of women. I'll remember you and this lesson for all life." And that's when the real campaign began. Over the next 12 months, Saiko sent Celeste more than 140 messages. He built multiple fake Instagram accounts, dozens of them. Every time Celeste blocked him, he resurfaced minutes later under a new username. His messages spiraled into vulgar, degrading, sexually explicit harassment that grew darker with each wave. Celeste kept telling him to stop. She warned him she would go to the police. Sometimes the messages paused, giving her a few days of quiet. Then they would explode back in, even worse than before. She confided in a colleague at work, finally letting her fear slip through. She said, "He's really going to kill me." She wasn't exaggerating. She wasn't being dramatic. She knew exactly how dangerous he was becoming. Around December 2018 or January 2019, about 6 months into the torment, Celeste and her mother, Aggie, went to the police. They brought everything: the screenshots, the timelines, the threats, and Celeste's fear. They told officers plainly that she was terrified. The response crushed them. The officer said, "He hasn't committed a crime. There's nothing we can do." They told Celeste she should ignore him, log off social media, and shut down her accounts. They minimized the stalking, dismissed the danger, and placed the responsibility on Celeste instead of the man who was harassing her. 6 more months passed. The messages didn't stop. The fear didn't stop. And Celeste and Aggie went back to the police, this time meeting an officer who actually listened. He took their situation seriously and helped them begin the process of obtaining protection orders. In July 2020, Celeste was granted a personal safety intervention order. This legally prohibited Saiko from contacting her. In August 2020, another interim intervention order was issued, tightening the conditions even more. For the first time in a long time, Celeste and her mother felt a small sense of relief. Maybe the legal system would finally stand between Celeste and her stalker. Maybe the order would be enough to make him stop. But on the 10th of August 2020, barely a month after the order was issued, Saiko violated it. He contacted Celeste again through social media and sent her a 3.5-page letter begging her to withdraw the order. That same day, he was arrested for breaching it. Celeste and Aggie finally exhaled. He got scared, they thought. Thank God, it's over. He must have learned his lesson. But their relief was tragically misplaced. Despite the breach, despite the arrest, despite the documented obsession, Saiko was released right back into the community. No detention, no remand, no monitoring, not even a GPS tracker or basic electronic surveillance. And the next day, the very next day, on the 11th of August 2020, Saiko went to a shop and bought a kitchen knife, a weapon he clearly intended to use, a weapon that proved his intentions were planned, not impulsive. He kept that knife for exactly 3 months. From August to November 2020, Saiko was hunting Celeste. He watched her every move online. He studied her Instagram posts. He used Google Maps and Google Earth to pinpoint the family home in Mernda. He tracked her life with the patience and fixation of a predator, preparing for the moment he had been building toward since the day she said no. He eventually found the property's floor plan online, most likely pulled from public real estate listings or old property records, and used it to work out exactly which room belonged to Celeste. That wasn't enough for him. He also drove by the house repeatedly, at least 3 separate times, studying the layout, watching the windows, figuring out her routines. He was preparing. He was tracking. He was waiting for his moment. Meanwhile, Celeste's life kept moving forward like any normal 23-year-old with plans and hope ahead of her. She was still working shifts at Ciro, still relaxing with her family, still seeing her boyfriend Chris, and building a future she was genuinely excited about. On the 14th, just 2 days before everything changed, Celeste and her brother Alejandro spent the day together. They made homemade pizzas, hung out by the pool, laughed, talked about visiting their little niece Daisy the next morning. Celeste was counting down to her 24th birthday on the 22nd. She had things to look forward to. She had no idea someone else was counting down too, but for a very different purpose. Sometime on the 14th or in the early hours of the 15th, Celeste posted a photo on Instagram. It was a warm picture of her and Chris, the first time she had ever shared a photo with a boyfriend. For Celeste, it was just a sweet, normal moment of young love. But for Sako, it was a confirmation of her willingness to move on with her life, one that he, in his twisted perspective, believed belonged to him, not her. For Sako, it was a breaking point. Hours after that picture appeared online, Sako climbed into his dark-colored Peugeot. He took the hammer, he took the kitchen knife he had purchased 3 months earlier, and he drove toward Mernda. It was the 16th of November 2020, early morning. Almost the entire neighborhood was asleep. Inside the Manno family home on Umbria Road, everything was quiet. Celeste was asleep in her bedroom. Her mother Aggie was resting somewhere else in the house. Her brother Alejandro was home too. At 3:38 a.m., Sako arrived at Umbria Road in his Peugeot. He scaled the fence to reach the backyard. Investigators would later find blood smeared on that fence, evidence of his escape route. He walked straight to Celeste's bedroom window. He lifted the hammer and smashed the glass. The violent crack of shattering glass ripped through the silence of the night. He climbed inside through the broken window and stepped into Celeste's room while she slept. What unfolded next lasted exactly 2 minutes and 39 seconds. Not even 3 minutes. Sako attacked her with the knife. Celeste woke up to find the man inside her room, armed and inches away. She fought back, hard. The forensic team would later confirm defensive wounds, showing how desperately she tried to protect herself. But she never stood a chance. Sako stabbed her 23 times. One of those wounds pierced straight into her heart. That was a fatal blow. He left the knife on the floor, climbed back out through the same broken window, and drove off into the night in his Peugeot as if he hadn't just destroyed an entire family. By the time Aggie woke to the sound of glass breaking and a surge of noise, by the time she ran down the hallway and burst into Celeste's room, it was already too late. The entire attack had been over in less than 3 minutes. Aggie found her daughter lying in bed, blood splattered everywhere, her body still. The injuries were so severe, the blood so overwhelming, that Aggie couldn't even tell which direction Celeste's face was turned. She reached out and touched her. Her skin was cold, like smooth marble. Aggie later said, through unbearable heartbreak, "How could I not protect her? What could we have done? Why? Just why?" Emergency services were called around 4:10 a.m. Police and paramedics rushed to the scene, but there was nothing left for them to save. Celeste Manno was pronounced dead in her bedroom on Umbria Road. She was gone before anyone ever knew danger had entered the house. She was only 23 years old, just 6 days away from turning 24. Right after the murder, Sako didn't run or hide. He drove straight to the Mernda police station. His car actually collided with the building as he arrived. He walked inside, bleeding from the hand he injured during the attack, and turned himself in. What he said to the officers was cold enough to freeze the air. He told them, "She's dead. Go have a look." Then he added, "You know what happened. It's your fault." He blamed the police for her death, for ignoring the warnings, for ignoring the intervention orders, for dismissing the earlier reports, for releasing him just 3 months before, after breaching the protective order meant to keep Celeste safe. Sako was taken to the hospital under police guard so doctors could treat his non-life-threatening hand injury. He stayed in the hospital for 3 days with officers watching him. On the 19th of November 2020, 3 days after Celeste was killed, Luis Sacco was officially charged with one count of murder. Back at the Manno home, the devastation was indescribable. Celeste's brothers, Jaden and Alejandro, rushed to the house. Chris Radale, her boyfriend, arrived too. Family members gathered outside in the street, hugging, sobbing, trying to understand how their world had just shattered. As police continued documenting the scene, flowers and handwritten notes began piling up outside the house. A glazier showed up to replace the smashed bedroom window. Forensic cleaners worked quietly inside. At one heartbreaking moment, Aggie tried to run past the crime scene cape as her daughter's body was being carried out. Officers had to hold her back. Celeste's father, Tony Manno, spoke to the media through tears, shaking with anger and grief. "This has got to be changed," he said. "It won't bring her back, but something has to change. Too many scenarios like this have happened already. What's it going to take for the government to listen? It's not right. It has to stop." Homicide detectives were assigned immediately. Identifying the perpetrator took no time at all. He had confessed, and he was already known to police because of the stalking complaints Celeste had reported. Inside the room, investigators found the kitchen knife lying on the floor, the hammer used to smash the window, and blood evidence throughout the space. The digital trail was overwhelming, more than 140 Instagram messages, all from fake accounts, Google searches pinpointing the house, the downloaded floor plan showing which room she slept in, proof that he had driven past the house at least 3 times before the attack. There was also documentary evidence, the intervention orders, and the receipt confirming he bought the knife on the 11th of August, the day after he was arrested for breaching the protective order. Every piece added to the same conclusion. This wasn't a moment of madness. It was a carefully planned execution by a man who had stalked Celeste for over 2 years, who had been arrested and released, and who then spent months preparing exactly how he would kill her. Sacco first appeared via an online hearing at the Melbourne Magistrates Court and was remanded in custody. In September 2021, he entered a not guilty plea. The case got tangled in arguments about whether he was mentally fit to stand trial, until the court eventually ruled that he was competent to proceed. More than 2 years after Celeste was murdered on the 6th of April 2023, Sacco finally changed his plea to guilty. Even then, he tried to minimize what he'd done, insisting he only caused 2 of the 23 stab wounds. Forensic analysis completely shattered that lie. The plea hearing lasted 3 days before Justice Jane Dixon. Prosecutor Patrick Bork urged the court to impose life imprisonment, describing the murder as an unprovoked, savage, cowardly attack. He didn't show up at her workplace in the middle of the day or wander by casually. As Prosecutor Bork put it, he hunted her. He found her house, he identified her bedroom, and he chose to go there in the dead of night. Dr. Ranjan Daraji later diagnosed Sacco with severe personality disorder, major depressive disorder, and body dysmorphic disorder. He also confirmed that Sacco had fabricated psychotic symptoms, attempting to appear more unwell than he was. And the risk assessment was terrifying. Sacco posed a moderate to high risk of future stalking and violent behavior. Throughout the hearing, Aggie held an illuminated blue urn containing Celeste's ashes tightly against her chest. She faced Sacco and called him exactly what he was, a coward, a monster. On the 29th of February 2024, Justice Jane Dixon handed down the sentence, 36 years imprisonment with a minimum non-parole period of 30 years. She told him, "Celeste deserved life, but you decided otherwise." Then came the part that shattered the family. While the murder of Miss Manno was an extreme and tragic crime, the court concluded it still did not meet the threshold for a full life sentence. Outside court, Aggie spoke with raw anger and heartbreak. The court chose to grant him mercy, even though he showed Celeste none. His right to mercy was more important than her right to live. Those words hung heavy because they felt true. Celeste's murder sparked an immediate demand for systemic change. On the 30th of June 2022, the Victorian Law Reform Commission released its final stalking report, 45 recommendations in total. It acknowledged clearly, at the heart of this review is the death of Celeste Manno. On the 17th of April 2024, the family launched the Justice for Celeste petition. It drew more than 62,000 signatures, calling for mandatory life sentences for stalker killers, full implementation of all 45 recommendations, and mandatory GPS ankle monitoring for high-risk stalkers. But as of November 2024, more than 4 years after Celeste's murder, the Victorian government still had not formally responded to the recommendations. Dr. Renee Heath summed up the frustration. This premier and her ministers show up to walk against family violence, but they won't actually change the laws. All talk, all walk, no action. Aggie continued fighting for GPS ankle bracelets for stalkers, pointing to Tasmania's Project Vigilance, an initiative that recorded a 100% drop in stalking incidents. But the Victorian government rejected electronic monitoring. And the most painful part. We know that if Celeste's situation happened today exactly the same way, it would end exactly the same way. Nothing meaningful has changed. Between January 2018 and May 2024 in Victoria, 113 murders were sentenced for killing 124 people. Only 11 received life sentences. That's 9.7%. Luis Sacco is still behind bars. He will be eligible for parole around 2050, when he is about 65 years old. The Manno family's fight hasn't stopped. Aggie's vow remains unbroken. I failed her once. I won't fail her again. The question that haunted Aggie, how could I not protect her? What could we have done? Has finally been answered. Celeste did everything right. Her family did everything right. They begged for protection again and again. The truth is simple and devastating. The system failed them. And now the only question left is, when will the system finally stop failing women like Celeste?